Hello everyone, I am Nabil Murad. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to bring data from multiple folders and select the folder from which you are getting the source data, combine the multiple files in the source folder and analyze the data in Power Query and be able to apply some conditions and create a simple dynamic dashboard like this one. I'm switching folders right now. I'm bringing data from the South region. I'm switching customer as well, so I can select Costco. And now I have the total profit from Costco in the South region for each one of the managers. Let me show you the work situation. I have a folder, all regions. In this folder, I have multiple subfolders and some other files. In each one of the subfolders, which correspond to a specific region, let's have a look at the East region. In the East region, I have multiple files. Let's open one of them. So I'm opening the first file in the East region, and in this file I have a data manager, a customer, cost of goods sold and sales. What we would like to do is to be able to calculate the profit generated by each one of the managers. I don't have a profit column, but we'll be creating it in Power Query. I want the total profit generated by George. I want the total profit generated by Amanda. But I want to be able also to specify the customer and the source file, which is the region. All the files have the same exact setup. I'm going to bring data from one folder, combine the multiple files in that folder, and then we'll make it a lot more dynamic. With data validation, I'll be switching the source folder and I'll be setting by condition for the customer. We have a lot to learn. Let's get started. Here is my start file. You can download the exercise files and follow along by clicking on the link below this video. In this file, in column S and column U, I have a list of regions, and each one of these names, each one of these regions correspond to one folder from which I'll be getting the source data. Also, I have a unique list of customers in column U. I'll be using the toList for creating a data validation drop list. I already did that, so I created a drop list for the different regions in cell A4, and I created a drop list for the different customers in cell D4. Now I want to start bringing data and perform the different steps for cleaning and transforming and create a chart. Then I'll make it a lot more dynamic by linking it to each one of these two data validation drop lists. To create a data validation, I go to the Data tab of the ribbon and then I click on Data Validation, or I can be using the shortcut Alt-DL Tab L tab, and in the data validation source box, I select the source that I want to use in my drop list. This will show the item that will appear in my drop list. I'm going to close because I already created it, and now I'll be starting bringing my data in cell A9. To bring data, I go to the Data tab of the ribbon, and to the left side of the Data tab, I have the Get Data command. I click on the down arrow, and from here I hover over From File, and in the sub-menu I select the magical option From Folder. I want to bring data from the folder which contains multiple subfolders. So I'm going to browse to the location of that folder. It's on my desktop and I named it All Regions. I expand it and then I can select any one of the regions just as an example. So I'll be selecting the East region. Each one of these folders correspond to a region, and in each folder I have multiple files as I showed you a while ago. I'll be selecting the East region as an example, and then I hit OK, and I hit OK. Now what would you like to do? I want to combine all the files in that folder, so I click on the down arrow for combine. I want to combine and transform my data, which means sending it to the query editor. The combine file dialog box opens. I'll be selecting the top option and then I hit OK. That will create a bunch of queries and will launch the query editor. So if you look to the left-hand side, a bunch of queries have been created. If you look to the right side, then here you see the steps that have been applied under applied steps just by combining the different files available in the East folder. Right now, the name of this query is East, but because I intend to make it dynamic and be able to switch regions, so I'm going to change the name to any region. I hit enter, that doesn't add a step. And here I can see the different information. I have the file name and I have the data. If I click to the right side in the empty area of table, now I can see the table. I can see the contents of that file. If I click to the right side of the second table, now I can see the contents. What I would like to do is to bring these tables, combine them together, append them together, and create some calculations and clean the tables. So I'm only interested in the data field. So I right click and I say get rid of the other columns, remove other columns. And now I can expand my column and bring the tables and append them together by clicking on the double side pointing arrow. And look at that, it didn't recognize the column header, so it uses column 1, column 2, and so on. We are going to fix that in a while, but I don't want to use the original column name as a prefix, so I'm going to uncheck this box and then hit OK. It worked fine and it brought my data from the different tables. It combined them together. Now I have 702 rows. And now what I would like to do is to use the row saying date, manager, customer, and so on. I want to use it as column header. And I do that by clicking on the Home tab and click on Use First Row as headers. When I do that, I would have fixed the issue. When you look at this colored line, it looks like we have a certain error. It gives me some statistics. When I hover over this orange color here, it says you have like one error, less than 1%. What would you like to do? I want to get rid of the error. And now if you look at the lower left corner, I have 701 row. But when I click on the ellipses and say remove errors, what remains are the 700 rows. And I don't see this error indicator anymore. And that's fine. I would like to create a column that subtracts the cost of goods sold from sales. So I click on the Add Column tab on the ribbon and click on Custom Column. What would you like to name this new column? I want to name it Profit. And for the profit column, I'm going to subtract the cost of goods sold from the sales, but I want to round up the number, so I'll be using an M function called number.round. Note that M functions are case sensitive, so I'm typing number.round, capital N, capital R, I open bracket, and here I select the sales by double clicking, I subtract by typing a minus sign, double click on the cost of goods sold. Well, this will return the profit, but I want to round it up and keep only 2 decimal places, so I type comma 2 and then I close the bracket. Here I see the green check mark telling me that I don't have any problem. I hit OK and I would have created the profit column. What I would like to do is to prepare for my next step, creating a dynamic filter for the customer. So for the time being, I'm going to filter the customer column by using any customer just as a model to hard code it and add it to the applied steps to the right. So I click on the down arrow for customer, uncheck select all, and let's say I'm going to filter and keep only Amazon. When I hit OK, a new step has been added to the applied steps. I just need the manager column, so I select it, I press Control and click on the profit, and then I want to get rid of the other columns, so I can right click on any one of the selected columns and select Remove Other Column. After removing the columns, I want to see the total profit generated by each manager, which means I'm going to group. That corresponds to the subtotal functionality in Excel. I'm going to do that by right-clicking to the right side of the manager field, and from here I'll be selecting Group By. I want to group the manager, and that will generate a new column. Let's give it a name, Total Profit. And what would you like to do as an operation? I would like to sum. Of course, I don't want to sum the manager column. I want to sum the profit column. And when I hit OK, keep an eye on this column, which will be replaced by total profit, the new column. And for each one of the managers, I have the total profit generated. At this point, I want to change the data type. So I click on the little icon to the left side of the field name. And from here, I'll be selecting currency. And I should have finished creating my summary report that I'll be using for my dashboard and my chart. This summary report is using one single region, which is the East region. It combined the files in that folder, and it filters the profit just for one single customer, which is Amazon. So I see the total profit for each one of the managers. Let me send it back to Excel. So I click on the Home tab. I click on the down arrow for Close and Load and select Close and Load to. I want to dump it in the same Excel worksheet, let's say in cell A9. So I'll be selecting existing worksheet, and when I hit OK, here is my query. It showed the total profit for each manager for the East region only for Amazon. In my start file, I had two drop lists. Changing the region from the drop list doesn't make any change in the result of my query. I would like to be able to switch folder. Instead of getting the files inside the East folder, I want to get the files from the North folder. And instead of filtering by Amazon, I want to be able to filter by any other customer. So I have these two drop lists. I previously converted them into a table, and that's a requirement to be able to use them in Power Query. I saved some time by converting each one of these lists into a table. The shortcut is Control-T. And then I want to send each one of these two tables to Power Query in order to link them to my main query, any region. Let's do that. I can select the first table, and then I go to the Data tab of the ribbon, and I can select from table or range. Alternatively, you can use the shortcut Alt-APT. I send the first one to Power Query, and it shows only one single record, the North. I want to hardcode this record, and I want to convert it into a single text entry, and I do that by right-clicking in the empty area to the right side of the single value we have and select Drill Down. When I do that, it has been converted into text, and here I can see the text tools, and on the right side I can see the different steps under Applied Steps. I want to rename this query, and I'm going to rename it Select Region, and then I hit Enter. I'm done with this query, and I'm going to save it as a connection only by going to the Home tab, click on the down arrow for Close and Load, select Close and Load to, and from here I'll be saving it only Create Connection, and then I hit OK. I want to do the same exact thing for the customer table, so I select it, and then I use the same shortcut Alt-APT. Alternatively, you can click on the Data tab and select from table range, Alt-APT. I want to rename this one Select Customer. And I want to drill down as I just did with the previous table. So I right-click to the right side of the single record I have, and I select Drill Down. That will convert it to a single text entry. I'm done. I'm going to save it as a connection only. So I click on the Home tab, Close and Load to, and I select only Create Connection. I hit OK, and I would have created 3 queries. I can see them to the right side under Queries and Connections. What I would like to do is to connect the Select Customer query to the Any Region query. And then I'll be connecting the Select Region query to the Any Region query. Let's do that. I'm going to start with the customer. That's the easy part. And to open the query editor, I right-click on Any Region query and select Edit. Alternatively, you can double-click on the query name. I opened my query editor, and I see the steps that I previously created, but I don't want to see the steps under Apply Steps. I want to see the code that has been created behind the scene in M language. To view the code, I click on the View tab, and I click on Advanced Editor. I'm resizing the advanced query, and here you see the code, the M code that has been created with every step I did when creating this query. Among the steps, if you remember, I filtered the customer column and I selected Amazon. What if I simply replace Amazon with the double quotes with the name of the other query, select customer, that we created as a connection only? So I just type select customer. I don't even need to continue typing because I have it in the IntelliSense list and I added it and I'm done. So simple. I hit done and now I test. Now you can see a change has happened right now. If I send it back to Excel, home, and click on close and load, now I can see the new numbers. If I change the customer, now they are linked together. I'll be selecting Walmart, but I have to refresh my query, so I click on refresh all and it looks like it's dynamic and they are linked together. I noticed in my query that the names are not sorted, and that's easy to edit the step. I'll be adding a sorting step in the any region query. Now let's go to the other part, connecting the region, which is the source folder, to the any region query. That requires a little bit more doing. I'm going to open that query, which is a connection, select region by double clicking on it. I go to the Advanced Editor by clicking on the View tab and click on Advanced Editor. Whenever you create a query, by selecting options from the interface, the query starts with let and ends with in, and each step is referring to the previous step. If I look at step number 2, change type, it's referring to source, which is the previous step. Remember that this query ends by returning a single text entry, which is the name of the region. I'm going to copy these 3 lines. That's all what I'm going to do in this query. Control C, and then I hit cancel because I'm not making a change. I want to go to the any region query where I'll be making this link or this connection, so I can expand the queries pane on the left side, and here is the any region query. I select it. I mentioned that I want to apply a sorting, so I click on the down arrow for the manager and I want to add this step sort ascending. That will make it easier for me when I create a dashboard or a chart. Let's have a look at the code. To look at the code, I go to the View tab and click on the Advanced Editor. That's a big code here. So I'm going to expand as I did a while ago. I'm going to resize my window and I want to push all these steps down. So I click to the left side of source, which is the first line of code, and then I hit enter twice. I previously copied from the select region 3 lines of code, and I'm going to paste them in the empty line that I created. So I hit Control V. I pasted the 3 lines, but right now I have so many problems. Let's understand the different problems. In Power Query M code, every line of code ends with a comma with the exception of the last line. And right now line number 3, which used to be the last line in the previous query, it's not the last line anymore, so I need to type a comma. The next step, which was the first step of the any region query, is looking at a folder, and here is the entire path of that folder. And it's hard coding the name of the folder East. And remember, each folder has the name of a different region. So I don't want to hard code the name of the region, which is the name of the folder. So I'll be deleting East. I select it and hit the backspace to delete it, and then click outside the closing double quotation, type the joining operator, the and symbol, Shift 7, and then I'll be referring to the last step of the previous query, which is region. So when I start typing region, I can see it here. I can just select it from the IntelliSense list, and I finish this part. This is all what I should be doing in modifying and linking the two queries. And because each step starts with a number sign and that number sign to denote the name of the step, I shouldn't have multiple steps having the same name. Right now I have source and I have source. I can't have two steps with the same name, so I'm going to modify one of them. I'm putting my blinking cursor to the right side of the second occurrence of source and I type 2, and because the same step is used in the next step, so I put my blinking cursor to the right side of source referring to the previous step and I type 2. I still have an issue, and I can see here the variable name change type is already defined in this scope, so it looks like change type is used multiple times, so I have to change it. Instead of change type, I'm going to add like an incremental number. Let's make it 3, and then because I refer to it in the next step, I click to the right side of change type and I type 3. Now here I get a check mark saying that everything is fine. Let's test. I hit done, and now I need to close and load. So I go to the Home tab and then I click on Close and Load, and I'm back to Excel. Right now, what happens if I change the region? I'll be selecting, let's say, the West region. If I click on refresh, then everything refreshes automatically. What if I change the customer and instead of Walmart, I'll be selecting Apple? I click on refresh. I can also use the shortcut Control Alt F5. So I'm going to test it with a shortcut. So if I select North, Control Alt F5, and it's dynamic and beautiful. Let's go and create our simple chart. I don't need the queries and correction anymore. I select a single cell and then I hit Alt F1. The chart is created with a single click, and I'm going to improve my chart very quickly. I don't want these horizontal lines, the horizontal grid lines. I delete them. I click on one of the columns, and I want to reduce the gap between the different columns and change the color of each column. So I use the golden shortcut of Excel Control 1 to open the Format Data Series pane. I have a slider. I'll drag the slider to the left to reduce the gap. I click on the fill bucket icon, and from here I expand the fill option and check the box vary color by point. That will add a different color to each column. I need to edit the vertical axis, the value axis, so I select it and then I click on Axis Options, and I want to display the units in thousands. That will make me some room. And finally, I want to bring the data labels here at the top. So I click on the plus sign, the chart element button to the upper right corner. And from here, I select data labels. The data labels have lots of decimal places, so let's format them. I select one of the data labels. By clicking on one of the data labels, I would have selected all of them. And to the right side, I click on the little triangle to the left side of number to expand it, and just by switching from general to number, that will fix the issue, and I see 2 decimal places. Numbers are now easy to read. I'm going to close the Format Data Label pane, and then I'll be creating a dynamic chart title that reads, "The total profit for Apple in the North region is that much." So I'll be creating a dynamic title. I move to the right, I select cell W1, and I type an equal sign, and in double quotes I'll be typing the total profit from, and in space I close the double quotation. I type an AND symbol, Shift 7 on your keyboard, and I would like to grab the customer name from the drop list, and then I type a second joining operator, and in double quotation I type a space, and then I type in the, and another space, I close the double quote, and then I'll be typing another AND symbol because I want to grab the region name from the drop list in cell A4, and finally one last AND symbol, and in double quote I type a space and I type the word region and I close the double quotation. Now if I hit enter, I would have created a dynamic label in cell W1. Let's link it to our chart. So I'm selecting my title in the chart. I put it in the edit mode by hitting F2. You can see the blinking cursor in the formula bar. I type an equal sign, and now I'm going to click on cell W1 where I created my dynamic title. I hit enter, and here is my dynamic title, and I'm almost done with my project. If you want to improve the appearance of the title, bold it and change the color. You know how to do this. Now that I finished creating and formatting my chart, I want to move it and cover the data that's coming from the first query, any region, because I don't really need to see it. It's better to get insights from the chart itself, and it's very easy to read and very clear to interpret. But every time I need to change the source folder by selecting a different folder, I have either to go to the Data tab and click on Refresh All, or use the shortcut Control Alt F5. It will be a lot better if whenever I make a change to any one of the two drop lists, that is reflected on my query and everything refreshes automatically. And to do that, I'm going to write one single line of code in the Visual Basic Editor to refresh my file. This line of code will say if you make any change in cell A4 or if you make any change in cell D4, refresh the entire workbook. To do that, I hover over the Sheet tab and then I right-click, and from here I'll be selecting View Code. That will take me to my Visual Basic Editor. In my Visual Basic Editor, I want the worksheet event, so I select Worksheet. Automatically, an event code has been created. That's not the one I want, so I go to the right side. I have a second drop list, so I select from the second drop list the change event. That's the one I like. I can go and delete the previous event. I'm not using it. And between the private sub worksheet change event, it says by val target as range. What's my target? So I'm going to write one line of code between the private sub and end sub. If target.address equal range a4.address, I type a4 in double quotation in parentheses, and then I say or I want to use the same part, target.address equals range d4.address, so I can cheat and copy this part to save some typing, Control C, and then a space, Control V. I'm going to change A4 and I'll make it D4. If the target is cell A4, or if the target is cell D4, which means if you make a change in cell A4 or if you make a change in cell D4, then what would you like to do? I type then, and then here I say this workbook dot refresh all. I hit enter and then end if. I finished creating my code, and this code is simply saying if there is a change in A4 or D4, then refresh the entire workbook. I'm going to close my Visual Basic Editor and enjoy my project. Now if I change the region, instead of south, I select east. Everything is dynamic. Everything updates. The query refreshes and updates, and my chart updates as well. Now let's test by changing the customer. Instead of Apple, in cell D4, I select Amazon, and everything is dynamic, and I finished creating my project. In this project, we were able to create a drop list that selects the source folder that will be sent to Power Query. And in this folder, we have multiple files that we combined together. We cleaned and transformed and created a calculated column. We also specified a condition for the customer, and we are able to link the drop list for the customer to the Power Query as well. By making any change, a VBA code is triggered and refreshes the Power Query result. We created a dynamic chart with a dynamic chart title, so we are able to get insights about our data in a clean and clear and easy way, simply by changing options from a drop list.